The Around the NFL podcast is going around the NFC in 48 minutes.
Or 114 from the Chris Wessling podcast studio. It's Around the NFL. Dan Hanzus here. Got heroes. Gregg Rosenthal. What did you tap the table for?
I just was excited. It's like the show's starting.
No,
I do stuff
when
like
you
that.
make eye contact and you tap the table, of course I'm going to think you're trying to tell me something.
I was just like
Tough start.
getting going. You're the tough start.
You're the tough start. Marc Sessler and Patrick Claybon. What's up, Pat?
You're the tough start is an incredible response.
You know what else is incredible?
What's that?
You know what else is an incredible response,
I don't know.
Patrick?
I don't know.
We have
No.
music submissions to share.
Ooh.
The audience.
No!
Before we get into the National Football Conference, which we'll do at 3-minute bursts with Eric Roberts manning the dart gun, the trank gun. By the way, Andrew Siciliano in stable condition at Cedar Sinai. Took one too many dart shots. It seemed like it didn't affect him
You guys kind of set up Andrew a
a little bit. And you could say that.
How did
and
we
that's
set him
fair.
up?
It was a little unfair.
If you didn't understand the rules, that just showed
yeah, but
an ignorance of the process.
it almost felt like, and Patrick, as someone that's just watching from the outside on that episode, it almost was like he was targeted at points, like he was being led into a trap.
I don't feel like he was targeted, more so as you guys placed him in front in the line of fire
Yeah.
to take dart after dart, and Eric is relentless, and that's just how it goes.
That is true. You could see Eric, even though he doesn't have any military background, couldn't you see Eric doing some damage,
No.
like in the Middle East in
What, like
2006?
Murdering people.
No, I mean, yeah, he's taken out the enemy. If he had to, like, I could see Eric doing that.
I will say that I am very rules driven,
Okay.
but I am also very bad at first person shooter games. So I might just be like firing a lot, unloading
Yeah.
a clip, might not hit anybody.
Yeah.
or you might hit somebody.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe you
just
should.
happy I was getting
It's a
Siciliano
disturbing
yesterday.
start to this
Yeah.
show.
Patrick,
All right.
murdering people? How about serving your country? Patrick,
Okay. You can put whatever scare quotes you
where's your
want.
pin?
Oh, no.
Put on your pin.
I support troops.
He's done it. He's covered. He's safe. Let's listen to a Patrick Claybon introduction song.
Wow.
Momentum isn't real, and fashion isn't real, but you know who is real. Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon. Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon. Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon.
Jazzy.
Yeah.
Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon, Patrick Claybon.
Very nice.
Yeah, I mean, lyrically, how can you?
Wait, what did he say
argue
off the
with that?
top? Momentum's not real? Is that what he said?
I think that was
What
the opening lyric, as I recall. That was from Colby Knight.
Like that.
Let me
Jazzy.
see. I think on the our IM client now, because the bots are coming for us. There's some they
Oh,
can
you got
actually
some-
translate some of the lyrics. But there was, as you would imagine, a lot of the content here is connected to momentum. That was no exception. Let's listen to another one. This one from Matthew Quick.
Okay.
He's from Alabama. His beard's as hairy as a llama. It's Patrick Claybon.
Pretty. Very
Okay.
pretty.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice, a shorter one. Very nice voice. Anything. Patrick is so damn handsome that anything that even approximates ugliness, like he's as hairy as a llama, it doesn't. To me, that line didn't ring true because his beard is immaculately groomed.
Anybody that takes the time to pin lyrics about me, I'm going to appreciate, no matter what.
I understand.
I've never felt like a llama, but hey, that's
Wonderful, Matthew. Let's check out. This one kind of blew me away. Alex Badura. Like a Radiohead type song for you.
okay.
Patrick Claybon, you are the man. Momentum. What a guy. What a stud.
That's tough to top.
I mean, I love just as having my own positive affirmations. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, this is an ego stroke, having
Yeah.
your own songs, no doubt about it. And I thought Alex nailed everything. Obviously, the momentum thing was a little off, but everything else, I could not quibble with any of it, including Patrick being a stud.
That would be my pick. I also just did an incredible self-experiment to see how far I could go into the episode without saying a single word. And I think I crossed 5.5 minutes, which would be a record.
You were missed. You were missed. Now that
No,
you're in the
I've
episode.
been told the episode is 48 minutes long, so like the window begins at some point here. But I think that third song it captures the essence. of
I
Patrick.
love that.
thought
I
so
want to
too.
hear that more. They were all great. So
Well,
far.
let's listen to one more. This is
Oh.
from Sam Gaffigan.
Okay.
Probably not a real
Who's
person.
that man who's coming on? Patrick Claybon. Who's that man who's rarely wrong? Patrick
Debatable.
Claybon. He announces with class and ferocity. The heat announces mass times velocity. Who's that man who's coming on? Patrick Claybon. For Dan, that was the formula for momentum.
It's definitely my favorite lyric.
that was good. I feel like sometimes we mix it up with Colleen's too. Like we have the main one, but then we throw in some others. I would like to hear that again, but I still think number 3 is
Yeah,
should,
I,
like,
I think
the
Alex.
go-to.
You should craft
All
like
tremendous. Thank you to
They're all
everybody.
really good.
a mix CD and give that to your significant other if she's ever wondering how great you are. Like it's sort of a hype CD for you.
I can see the look on her face
You do have to play these
if I ask.
for Lauren. You have to play them. Just as Mark says, just a reminder.
Yeah, a gentle
You realize,
reminder.
like, I know we're busy. We got kids, and
Right.
like we've known each other for so long now, and sometimes just a reminder. And your wife's a wonderful woman, but like she's married to Patrick Claybon, and here are some songs as a reminder.
Let's make it clear.
Like you did it.
I don't think
You
she-
got Claybon.
I don't think she forgets.
I think we all do in our marriages sometimes what we have, and these songs will serve as a reminder.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to, like, this is how you frame it. Okay, you're like, God, this was so stupid. I did the podcast today. It's ridiculous, but like they played these like songs about me, and it was dumb. It was dumb. And then see, she takes the cheat.
Okay.
She probably will. Like, what do you mean songs about you? What does that mean?
Also, make sure
Who's
that
man who's coming on?
And then you just like lay it out, and then watch her fall in love with you all over.
Yeah, come in hard self-deprecating.
Okay.
Yes.
You find it absurd.
Yeah.
You almost want to share the
Right.
joke with her, but then
Like-
she starts to feel something different.
Just mega imposter syndrome, because which I do have, like the fact that people sat on their computers and got their instruments out and made songs for me, but like, hey,
Right.
I'll
I would
pitch it-
go the other
that's-
route. I would turn off all the lights in the house right before dinner, and then maybe get a strobe thing going, and then blast it, and then the lights come on, and you walk into the dinner table as these songs are playing.
That's
like a huge
that's like the arena rock way to do it. If anyone, and those are all excellent, and thank you again, everybody. If anyone wants to make one that's just for Patrick to use at home, if you know what I'm saying,
I like that.
that when you don't throw up the arena lights. Yes, Colleen, light a couple candles, get a babysitter, and then play something. Patrick would take that as well.
A babysitter at home while they're at home.
No, get him out of the house.
Yeah, okay.
Take him to the bounce house or one of those
Right.
ridiculous places.
So-
Here, son, let's bounce here until my ACL explodes. It's like, okay, great party. My Achilles is gone.
Some of those places are falling into disrepair, guys. Like you start bouncing a couple of ways, and it's like that. Like this could go horribly wrong.
Not to mention, have you ever gone to one of those bounce houses and not had the entire house ill within 48 hours of going?
Yeah, plus it's a ripe, fertile ground for like concussions where like two children out of control bang heads, and then it's like, you're dealing with that. A child with concussion's no fun. That's
I
no
feel like
treat.
we might be risking losing sponsors, but this is an important message to get out. Enough with the bounce houses.
Wow.
What sponsor?
Let's get back to the bowling alley. All right, let's get into it. Without further ado, Patrick, that you got to be feeling good now.
Yeah, I'm rife with confidence.
All right. With that said,
Yeah.
Time to go around the NFC. Was that the Dean scream?
That was the Dean scream.
It's back.
Showing our age.
Damn. Listen, we had Ross Perot come up. We fast forward 12 years, get a little Dean scream. What's next? You never
Topical.
know.
We're topical.
Cycle back to
Political
little
front.
Charlie
Aaron
Sheen.
Rodgers doing contrail myths. I don't know.
All right, let's get into it. Let's start with in the NFC. In the East, we'll go east to west, just like we did with Andrew Siciliano over on the A. And again, Andrew is in critical but stable condition. You could send flowers or whatever you wish. to
Just
Andrew.
don't send darts.
No more darts. The doctors were amazed that something like that could happen in a controlled environment within the NFL's building. And I believe there will be hell to pay. Like the Ohtani situation, and we're like, oh, yeah, we'll blame it on the interpreter. We need to figure out a plan post-haste on where to is it Eric? Does Eric take the fall?
Eric is pressing
He's the natural
he's
guy?
pressing the trigger.
Right, but you could argue that we put him in that. We put the gun in his hand.
He did say he follows orders. That was what.
Ooh, clip that off before he deletes it. All right, let's get to it. NFC East, Patrick Claybon, the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys having turnover yet again. Now Tyron Smith is going to be protecting Aaron Rodgers. We see Tony Pollard going elsewhere, playing with Tajay Spears in Nashville. And my question about the Dallas Cowboys last year was Mike McCarthy taking over the play calling duties. And is it a Mike McCarthy or a Kellen Moore issue, or what was going on with the Dallas Cowboys offense? No more concerns about the offense. And I'm looking at the defense with Dan Quinn out. For the second year in a row, Dallas has bargain shopped in free agency. They made those late trades for Brandon Cooks as well as Stephon Gilmore last year. Can the Dallas Cowboys bargain hunt their way to a Super Bowl if they're allegedly, quote unquote, all in?
They're going to have to. And for all these teams, it's an incomplete grade, but some teams more than others. I counted up 9 players that had significant roles on the team that either have signed elsewhere, most of them, or a couple others are just unsigned. And to this point, they haven't brought in anyone new that's going to have a significant role except for Eric Kendricks, who's kind of at the end of his run as a difference-making player, a role player at this point. So they need like 3 offensive linemen. They certainly need a running back. They need some defensive tackles. Cornerback looks a little thin. I don't know if they'd bring back Stephon Gilmore. So they have a lot to do, but you know what? I actually think their personnel department deserves a little bit of credit here to give them some faith that over the last few years, like they always have a good roster. So like the Ravens, I kind of am in a wait and see mode with the Cowboys.
I mean, I think losing Dan Quinn matters a lot. He clicked with, running that defense. I got him a job. Well, sure, till then. But now, like if you're Mike Zimmer, you've seen a number of faces leave your defense, and it's going to be a bit of a different scheme. I mean, Michael Gallup is visiting with the Ravens. It's like, I guess for me, it's kind of a tired conversation. The Cowboys just bring me exhaustion at this point. But like, you did have your owner / GM kind of announce, we are going to do everything we can to maximize our roster, and it's been the quietest of every team out there. It's been the quietest, weirdest free agency period.
Not like a single real notable addition so far. I think in some ways, and there are different levels to this, phrase, but the window closed. Dak is crazy expensive. CD's about to be insanely expensive. Parsons, forget about it. Going to be the highest paid player in the league. They might end up being in a situation where they highest two paid players in the league on each side of the ball. And that is very hard now to build a championship roster around it. So since they couldn't get it going and get it done when these guys were younger, now it's going to be so tough. And yeah, you're right. They have to absolutely nail the draft.
They have won 12 games 3 straight years. So I don't think the window is closing. I get it, but that's like incredible consistency.
At this point, it doesn't matter anymore.
The problem is they've always had a really good offensive line for the most part, and right now that looks like a weakness, which is weird.
Up next, the New York Giants. The G-Men. The G-Men. Timeout.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Early timeout.
The G-Men. The G-Men. The G-Men. G-Men. The G-Men.
The G-Men. The G-Men.
The G-Men.
The G-Men.
The G-Men.
All right, time in. I'm gonna spin positive. I'm sick of it. Rosenthal always throwing dirt all over the Giants. His own personal issues coming through. I'm gonna combat that. While everyone was burying the Giants and doing their annual springtime slurpage of Howie Roseman and the Eagles, I thought the Giants made easily the most impactful move in the division with this Brian Burns trade and then subsequent signing. Their defensive line has Burns, a star who has a next level potential even. You have Dexter Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another superstar. And Kayvon Thibodeau, who's, personal interactions aside, had a big second year and looks like a guy that is hitting as a first-round draft pick. Now they're all together, and if they stay healthy, I know there's issues other places. And I know everybody wants to focus on the Saquon left thing, but that is a game-wrecking defensive line, and it could lift the entire defense and win games.
Yeah, I think that is a team strength that matters a lot inside of this division. Brian Burns was a coup d'etat. I also think Jermaine Illuminor along the offensive line is a versatile guy who adds. They need to add bodies there. My one thing with them is you're into year 3 of this regime, and we know that Daniel Jones is not part of this team after this season. And in fact, it's like he feels to me like on strange soil already. I don't care about the Drew Lock signing. You are sitting there high up in the draft. Do you pass on someone like J.J. McCarthy, who would have pieces around him? I don't mind that they moved on from Saquon, but it's like I would look at quarterback. I just would to match up with this good, solid defensive front.
I just think, considering the decisions that they have made at the quarterback position and how that set them up, that if they're not sold on a quarterback and you get to have your mark on the pick and the way that the franchise goes in the next, they have an opportunity to either make that defensive line that Dan was talking about even more of a strength. They could come in and add a wide receiver in these top, because considering where they're picking, the quarterbacks are going to go early. A very, very good football player is going to be available. They can make the rest of the team better. And I think if you add like a Romo Dunze to this group with Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt, you get a good group for some quarterback, whether it's Daniel Jones or somebody they get later this year. But I just think if you're reaching for a quarterback, if you're trying to solve this problem, then you're exacerbating.
Right. I'm surprised that there's been so much quarterback talk, because like taking the 4th quarterback when you have the 6th pick seems like a disaster in a draft that has 3 number 1 wide receivers. Malik Neighbors might still be there at number 3, and they need to find their guys. I look at this and I look at some other GMs like Ryan Poles in Chicago that are entering year 3, and I can see his guys. Who are Joe Shane's guys? Their guys are Gettleman's guys. They're best players. I heard that. Eat it.
And Jones
Rule
gets a
follower.
second year. People could say all this thing about the quarterback. He's going to get the second year on this contract, and we'll see what happens after that. Okay, up next, Greggy, the Eagles.
Fun offseason so far for the Eagles. They've signed 3 or 4 of the top 30 or 40 free agents available with Bryce Huff. I like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming back. Saquon's going to be a great fit. They just keep adding little pieces. And yet I still look at it and it's like, does Vic Fangio have what he needs? Does Vic Fangio still have the magic touch too? After a couple mixed years, do they still have?
Everyone hated him last year.
Right. Mixed is maybe being kind. Like, do they still have the best roster in the NFL? Because I look at the 2 lines, and there's maybe some questions, but they've planned ahead with Tyler Steen, Cam Jurgens on the offensive line. Hassan Reddick is still there. They're probably going to trade him. But I look at a lot of depth on both of the lines. I look at a fantasy football spectacular on offense. The secondary has some question marks, but maybe that's what the draft is for. Is this still the best roster in the league? Because I believe.
I don't know if it's the best roster. I cannot think of too many examples of a quality team like this with a lot of high profile parts where you're going on to the 3rd straight year on both sides of the ball with a different coordinator. I mean, that affects things, especially on offense. It does on defense. I want to see what happens with Reddick. I think when you're Howie Roseman, I just expect him to create 3 or 4 notable moves before we get into the summer. It's like they're not done yet.
And one of those moves seemed like an admission, right? With the way that they handled GJ's departure, like they were lost in the secondary. And maybe you can make the case that reason for that coordinator change was because they were bad. We saw the Eagles lose a coordinator because they were good. And how much confidence do you have when you saw things fall off at the end of the season? I think I still have it because Jalen was hurt. AJ was hurt. Not only were the decisions and the play calling kind of questionable down the stretch, but the players were hurt. I just don't know that Kellen Moore really excites me. And I wonder how many very talented quarterbacks are going to be saddled with Kellen Moore and have disappointing results.
And supposedly his offense, it's no longer Nick Sirianni's offense.
And that's deserved after what happened down the stretch. And, you don't have Kelsey in the building. You don't have Cox in the building. And we were talking about that. We were talking about the improvement index, Greggy. They were 27th in that in terms of, the roster losses and their draft standing. So there is a way to look at this roster and say it depreciated in some ways as well.
I think it is important to remember losing Jason Kelsey is a massive loss. Now, I look at the rest of their losses. Fletcher Cox certainly was valuable to them, but I think they've replaced him and prepared. Everyone else leaving the team, I can live without.
Well, they lost. I know this
Swift.
is like hard to assess, but they lost like locker room leadership on a team that was in total chaos by the end of last season.
Kid's smart.
Decided to stop talking there.
That wasn't about the team. Wasn't about the team.
Who was that dart fired at?
I was just complimenting Marc.
It missed Dan, I think.
Playing the
right
game.
over Dan's
Just
shoulder.
I mean, are we allowed to talk?
I thought we weren't allowed to talk at all.
Yeah, I thought that was a conceit.
I thought
was that
Andrew
the whole
wasn't allowed to
conceit.
talk.
it's a complete law. It's a completely lawless.
All right, let me.
Scenario.
I'm not going to
Making
call
new
time
rules.
out.
Now you're making new rules.
It's a circus.
I'm throwing the challenge flag.
We can talk, but it can't be about the teams. Well, then what's the point?
Challenge flag.
It's a circus.
It's almost like what makes the podcast better? We can talk. It just can't be about that topic. You know what I mean? Like, and in that case, I was giving Marc kudos.
Hey, like 9 years in, let's just make some new rules.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I think if you're Eric, it's like the rules of this game seems to change every 5 or 6 minutes.
I think more darts makes the podcast better. So.
If I would have said a point, if I would have followed up on the point Marc made, dart me to hell, bro.
Out of bounds.
Put me in Hades with a dart.
Gotcha.
All right. With that said,
More darts.
Marc, the Washington Commanders. They gonna keep that name?
I would love to see them change that name. None of us have ever bought into that. I don't hate what they did in free agency at all because I started there early. Look I've done that 2 days in a row. Too bad. I think Dorrance Armstrong following Dan Quinn, Frankie Louvu, we've all talked about him, Bobby Wagner, Jeremy Chin. It's like there's some veteran like identity on this team, and I think that was needed. And I know, of course, like you move on from your quarterback. They absolutely are taking one at number 2. Daniel Jeremiah has them taking Drake May. I mean, I see the Drake May like assessments are all over the map. Like Chris Sims has him in a tier below Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. It's like I don't know who's going to number 2. I don't know what the Commanders think. But I have one question because I think this like addition to the team kind of flew under the radar a little bit. Like you've got a new quarterback and a lot of new pieces on offense. Like, do we trust? Like, is Cliff Kingsbury someone we trust at this point to helm a rookie's like opening salve into the NFL? It's like that to me is a big question mark.
And I don't know why we would have reason to say that we do. I just haven't necessarily seen it. Especially
this is a man that found a way to have a losing record with Patrick Mahomes.
And then he comes he comes over to USC and Caleb gets worse. Right, there was a serious regression in the quarterback that's going to go number 1 overall, and so now the Cliff move signaled to people that is Washington going to try to get the number 1 overall pick, and there hasn't been any sort of move towards that yet. And I'm just wondering what position we're putting a rookie quarterback in. If it's a rookie, if they go another direction, I'm just very confused about the team. And this is a franchise we thought we were going to get more clarity from. And it feels like we've actually gotten less.
And if ever was not a quarterback, they have Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
I don't think they're letting the media know at all what they're interested in. So there's sort of a vacuum and people just speculate, which actually is a good sign that's different than what was happening in Washington. in the past. No, I don't think anyone's going to know whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May until draft day, which is fun, and I think is a sign of they're getting better. I like the approach. They brought in so many players. 14 new players have come in from other organizations. 8 have gone. I think that's the way to do it with a team like this. Just hope you hit on 7 or 8 role players. And some of the moves, like Luvu, like Armstrong, I think have been among the best in free agency.
Yeah, a lot of their moves haven't blown me away, but it's like, okay, he seems useful. That could work. The Mariota thing blows my mind that he keeps getting a job. But otherwise, I thought like they've been effective in using free agency to overhaul the roster. And you have a new head coach. And did any team need more of a kind of like a reset this year than Washington? Now, will it work? We'll see. Are they a lot better? We'll see. But at least they're trying. And then if you hit on the quarterback, who knows? So I give them a solid B for their offseason so far.
I'd agree.
I hope they take Jaden Daniels. That's where I'm leaning.
All right, we're just getting going. See, under the old rules, I'd take a dart right now.
I don't know. There are no rules. Like at this, we've established that. Am I allowed to talk or just you? I don't even know.
I feel like some people think the dart is a part of that music sound effect because it's so common.
It's true. How's your ammo doing? You fire off so many darts that I start to wonder, like, who's your
Unlimited
supplier?
Never ends.
One of the scariest things was Eric saying, "I'm good at taking orders." Like he could be a killing machine as like an assassin. What was the Bill Hader show? Barry, just Roberts,
Sleeper cell.
spin-off. All right, let's take a break and we'll get to the NFC North. All right, we are back. Let's get to the NFC North. Let's get right into it with the Chicago Bears. I'll start this one off. They have improved their roster. There is no doubt about that. Love the Keenan Allen move. DeAndre Swift, cool. Kevin Byard, okay. Gerald Everett, nice addition to the tight end room. And now everything, all attention obviously turns to the number 1 overall pick. Everyone knows where this guy, where they're going to go with this, and barring some type of absurdity, Caleb Williams becomes that guy. So speaking of off seasons where I give a solid B so far, I like what the Bears have done. I'd even bump them, Claybon, to a B+ because the first job you have to do when you bring in a pick of this ilk, a number 1 overall pick, is don't surround him with trash. They're trying to set up infrastructure to let the kid hit the ground running, a la CJ Stroud. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, and they have a very good example from Chicago of what not to do with a quarterback that goes in the first round and how to surround him and how to provide him with the opportunity to be successful. So you think they take the lessons that they learned from the Justin Fields experience? And I'm looking at Keenan Allen as still A1. Like Keenan Allen, of course, there's injuries. Everybody in the league is going to deal with injuries at some point. But the way that his game is structured, he can contribute 3, 4, I still think maybe 6 years down the road. And then you change DJ Moore and the way that defenses can focus on him. It's all set up there. What's the schedule like for Caleb, and how are they going to facilitate him to be successful? I'm going to have to see it.
I love also that they got Keenan Allen for a 4, and because their cap situation was what it was, they could absorb that salary versus him being cut at some point, and they were able to make that trade. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. It's part A of 2 parts, because the second part is the draft. Obviously, we know it's Caleb Williams, number 1, barring a stunner. But then they've got the number 9 pick too, and it's like, do you just go like maybe do you get the best wide receiver possible? And suddenly you've got a stacked offense. So I think Gerald Everett matters too.
Right. They could be at a spot where those top 3 receivers are off the board, and then the value doesn't seem like it's there, so they take a tackle there. That's where this draft is
or they
really
trade
deep.
back.
Or they take the top defensive player on the board. I think Ryan Poles has done the thing, the thing is by year 3 of being there, I want to have some stamp on my team. I want to have evidence that my time here has been worthy, and I think he has. He's built up a defense that has an identity. Eberflus made it happen a year ago, but they're still very thin on the like. They could use another tackle, certainly. They could use another receiver. Keenan Allen's on a 1-year deal, and they have no 3rd receiver, no 4th receiver, no nothing. So that they could look for another one.
I mean, feels like a great time to have 2 top 10 picks. So it just, there's reason for hope. And yes, the Fields thing turned into kind of a fiasco with the way the trade ended up playing out, but it's all in the past now, and you move forward as an organization, and maybe brighter days are ahead.
For once, the Bears are worth some hype.
Deserve it.
So I'm watching. We're on a freaking monitor. I stopped talking before it hit 0.
Past the
So
deadline.
you're
No
done.
way.
And as someone who's the tee up of the segment, I had put a bow on it. Then you came in.
Well, that's because
As it
I
is
saw
0.
the 4, 3, 2, 1. I thought I'd get one last shot. I'm not worried about my field goal percentage like those guys in the NBA who hold it that extra half second before they
Can
throw
you
it.
keep shooting him?
Give it to me.
I think it was still in the hands. March
You
Madness
gotta
going
go
on.
off the
I think
clock.
It was on the fingertips.
It's on-
Can you
That's
get a
close.
stronger dart for Greg?
I think
All
it's
right.
a sharpshooter's prerogative.
Detroit Lions, Marc Sessler.
I like some of the very Lions-y type things that they did, like DJ Reader, really good football player to add to the defensive line. Kevin Zeitler can still play, and like he is sort of a nasty, beefy human to add to their offensive line. The thing with the Lions, like last couple years, it's like their defense kind of let them down, and I know they were better last year than the year before. I do wonder if they could pull. I know they went and got Carlton Davis. They re-signed Emmanuel Mosley. Amik Robertson's there as well, but they have $26 million in cap space, and there is this behind door number 2 option. They were listed as one of 6 teams that had a potential interest in L'Jarius Sneed. He can play all over the place as a cornerback. Is it so crazy for a team that's on the precipice of Super Bowl? Their window is right open. Go get a difference-making cornerback who can also. I think if you use him correctly, he is a total quarterback nuisance as a blitzer. It would add a whole element to a Lions secondary that look completely different. Like, do you just go for it?
They are also aware and made a statement about Cameron Sutton, their cornerback, who they brought in for a lot of money last year, who's being investigated. Police in Florida have been searching for him about 2 weeks after an arrest warrants for a domestic violence case. So that, and they released a statement. They're aware of it, and that's another thing at that position that I think is a concern. I was thinking, too, they could be a spot for Justin Simmons, who's a free agent at safety. They could certainly need another safety. These signings, Marcus Davenport was another one. Like Zeitler was a 1-year deal. These are all very much like, let's add a little sprinkle to get over the top on some high risk, high reward 1-year deals.
I think the departure of Jonah Jackson was something that really meant something, but then Kevin Zeitler comes over and you feel solid about that. I just, in terms of the Jared Goff discussion, feel so much better about Jared Goff than
Sure.
maybe ever. And Ben Johnson,
I think he might get a contract this offseason.
yeah, why not? It's there's the negatives there are vastly outweighed by thinking about Jahmyr Gibbs coming back his second season, knowing how to operate in the offense, and more JMO as well on the outside. I'm
More
all
JMO. Let's see
positive.
some more JMO
All
this year.
JMO.
Yeah, the defense has been the focus. Reader, Davenport, Robertson, Carlton Davis, the third.
Davis was a big time move.
Now let's see if that takes the defense from back end of the 32. They finished 24th in the league in yards per play allowed last year to the middle or even a little bit higher, and that could be the difference for this team to getting over the hump in the NFC. Exciting times indeed.
I always am a little worried though about they've whoever enters the year where it's like, oh, we just need a little more. And I think Dan Campbell said it in the locker room. Like, there's no guarantee we ever get back there. And the NFC, I think, is going to look better this year. As much as I like Jared Goff, he's still not one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like,
That division is a
getting back there
nightmare
will be
right now.
tough.
It's thorny.
Indeed. Technically, I was seconding his point.
I thought
which
you were.
that
That
takes
was
a dart.
that was an
I'll take
add-on.
it.
It was an add-on.
See,
to
that just
what I was
shows,
saying.
again,
Yeah.
magnanimous. I didn't say, nice job, Mark. I was actually agreeing with your point, which is over the deadline of the class.
I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't know. I'm trying to go dart free today.
You're doing
Unlike
well,
our
sir.
last
All right.
guest.
We'll see.
Up next, the Packers with Gregg Rosenthal.
I struggled in this exercise thinking, like, what is the big need for the Packers? Have they refreshed their roster that fast that, like, they can do anything on draft day? Certainly they could use a safety, but they did just add Xavier McKinney to big-time money. Was one of my favorite moves in free agency. Left tackle, I think, could be one, and they've had such a good history of finding values. But you look at this roster, and it's just goody picks sprinkled up and down the draft. I mean, up and down the roster. I guess cornerback would be the spot. You brought Keyshawn Nixon back, the returner, but Jair Alexander is still around. People didn't necessarily expect that. Eric Stokes, like, they could get better there. And yet I look at this roster and, like, it's a lot of homegrown talent. It's a there's a lot to like, and Josh Jacobs and A.J. Dillon, to me, is a fun combination at running back.
I don't like Josh Jacobs versus where they were a year ago at running back, but that's my own personal bias. I think Xavier McKinney was one of the best signings, and it's a little bit anti-Packers to go out and spend that money the way they did, but they're able to do that because they've sprinkled in so many good draft picks, and it really, so much of it is like everything that happened last year post Aaron Rodgers is everything he was asking for before, and I think one of the bigger issues was the defensive coordinator situation was becoming a lightning rod all over the place. Jeff Hafley comes in with a better situation in the secondary. I'm very interested to see how he performs because he's basically one of the rare guys that left a head coaching job in college flat out because he was tired of the way college football operates.
Josh Jacobs is the only player that's going to start on offense that isn't a Packers draft pick from the last 5 years.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And that luxury allows them to kind of do whatever. And I think that tackle spot is the place to fill. And if, say, a J.C. Latham is off the board at 25, then I think the Packers are a solid trade down candidate to try to get. Because if you're a believer in this whole, well, you can get a receiver anywhere, the Packers hit on almost every single one of them in the past couple of years. So that Goody can do whatever, and Jordan Love gives you the opportunity to just kind of take a shot.
Love is huge, obviously. I saw a meme floating around, one of my favorite movies ever, Good Will Hunting, when Will goes after this Sarsgaard character, and he goes talking about math for him, but it's for the Packers and picking quarterbacks. Do you know how easy this is for me? Do you have any idea how easy this is? This is a joke, and I'm sorry you can't do this. I really am, because I wouldn't have to sit here and watch you fumble around and it up. That's basically the Packers to 24 other teams in the league that cannot find quarterbacks. They've found 3 in a row. My one point is you don't have Joe Barry to kick around anymore. They got him out of the building, Mark.
Yeah.
You like Good Will Hunting?
I love it. I also love when he's, goes after the man with the ponytail early on, the iconic line.
How about them apples?
Yeah. That guy is an annoying academic. He gets under
great actor, great casting.
Yes. He looks like a central casting intellectual oaf. No.
I feel like you were baited into that one.
Not at all. Stop it.
I was not watching the clock. To
Stinky
be
Davis. All right, next, Patrick, the Vikings.
So the Minnesota Vikings go out and make a trade. They trade a future second-round pick as well as a late-round pick, and their number 42 to move up. It makes me feel like they will take a shot to at least try. Kwesi sending out some feelers and offers to get a quarterback, move up in the draft in 2024. My question about the Vikings, the huge departure of Kirk Cousins, how long does Sam Darnold fend off whoever the Vikings draft at quarterback in 2024?
I guess doesn't it depend on how big the swing is for the Vikings, or does it not matter if they take any quarterback in the first round? Sam's kind of basically
if they somehow
just
get up to 3
warmer.
and take Jaden Daniels or Drake May, I feel like it's less of a leash. I actually think they still would tend to lean towards starting Darnold to start the season, but it'd be less of a leash. If it's a guy in the second round, I'm not totally convinced that they're going to take a quarterback in the first round just because we all think.
I think that's the natural inclination once they got that second pick, is that they were arming themselves to march up the board, but maybe they have a whole different plan that they're about to unfurl.
Or maybe they like Michael Penix and are going to take him at 23 or something like that and see what happens at 11. They've sneakily had the most transition of almost any team in the NFL over the last 2 years. I counted 11 players that are out the door that had significant roles that have signed with other teams already this year, and they've had 14 players come in. And I like it. I've liked Kwesi's process. I like the players that they've brought in for the most part. Aaron Jones, certainly Jonathan Grenard, Cashman, Van Ginkel. It's a fun group of players they brought in, but it is really a different roster than it was 2 years ago. It's a lot of transition.
Kwesi openly talked about churning the roster, the process, and they found a way without going into the darkness during all that. I do find it interesting because Daniel Jeremiah typically does not include trades before his final mock draft, and he went out of this way to do because they added that second pick. He has them moving up to number 4, trading with the Cardinals to get J.J. McCarthy. And I think it comes down to, if you're Kevin O'Connell, do you have a guy that you fall in love with, and that kind of greases the skids for a trade up?
There's a lot of McCarthy Viking smoke. And I get all that, and the focus is on the offense. They've done a great job building up the offense. The line's good. Addison was a good pick. And I look at this defense. It's the opposite of the Packers. Like they have almost no homegrown day 1 or 2. They literally don't have a day 1 or 2 guy that was drafted on their team that's starting for their defense, other than Harrison Smith, who's been there 13 years. Like they have no premier homegrown talent on defense. It's a tough way to live.
Kind of, to me, I'm curious what their plan is. Was the Darnold move strictly a move like, here's our backup plan if the draft doesn't go our way? Or they see Darnold as a depreciated asset, then they can, with a cheap QB, build up the roster quickly around him and take a swing? I guess we'll find out. That's the NFC North. We take a break and we hit the South. All right, we're back. Mark, do you want to give a Bayside? Want to give a Bayside a try?
Do it.
Sure.
Well, no, he has to say.
I'm not allowing a no here. I had no chance at a no.
All right, hit it, Eric.
Let's try that again.
Did you understand the assignment?
I do not have any idea what you're asking.
How
So
Dan
just the
comes back from the break with the Baysides thing. That might be when Mark's just kind of checking out. He might not be aware of what.
But then usually, naturally, you
All right, how
would
about
speak
this?
next. Do you want me to
Let's do
say
it.
something?
I'll do it.
You
I'll
say
do it
what
this
he
time.
says. You say what.
And then
he says.
coming back out of the last break, you'll give it a shot.
I'll just guide
Wait,
us
so when
in.
I
I'm gonna guide
initially
us in
said, "Do you
from-
want to try Bayside?" and you just said, "Sure," you had no idea what I was
Let's
talking.
just play the song. I mean, because it's like these things. I kind of am more like react mode during that. We would come out of these long, lengthy, enjoyable
Right.
breaks that we have.
Okay, so here they come. Here it comes, and then we'll try it the last break. All right, welcome back. We now move on to the.
Yeah, but I thought you wanted me to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm showing you
next
it,
time around.
and then for our last break,
I'll do
you're
it in
going
my
to
own. I'll do it in my own way
Okay.
when the
there we
time
go.
comes.
That's what we really want.
Okay. There we go. Whew. Mark, the Falcons. That was a journey.
Yeah, no, I feel at this point I'm just completely lost at sea. I would ask. Here we go. Remember the old IBM "You Make the Call" commercials?
Mhm.
Those were fun. Like the back when there was there was a less nonsense going on, so you could focus on it, and you and your dad would argue over the penalty call.
I don't remember those, but yeah.
It might have preceded you were watching
Yeah,
a
I
little
don't.
bit. It was
I'm not sure either, but
it was old
Go ahead.
school. But
You're old.
I want you to imagine in this world that Terry Fontenot, Falcons GM,
sure.
has received a case of sunstroke after a front office boat party at the George H. Sparks Reservoir, which is outside of Atlanta. And he's down for the count. He can't attend the draft, so you have to make the call. And you are looking at a pretty loaded Falcons offense. At pick number 8, though, you can help Raheem Morris get a foundational defensive player, picking Dallas Turner, the number 1 edge guy out of Alabama in the draft. They need that. Or you can look at a wide receiver room with Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore, and Kyle Pitts, and you just go get Rome Odunze and just say Kirk Cousins, no matter, even if your Achilles is still only at 30%, you cannot help but hit one of these players on every pass attempt that you have. You make the call, Greg.
I think I'm taking the defensive player. Well, Odunze is a unique case. Is he duplicative of Drake London? They're kind of similar in some ways. So although you would love to have both, I don't think he'll be there. I kind of think the first 6-7 picks of the draft are going to be quarterback, wide receiver. It's like an ultimate fantasy showdown. So unless they are willing to move up, I have a feeling they'll be gone. And their defense looks like one of the worst defenses in the league on paper. It's kind of flown under the radar. You know who they've signed on defense this offseason? Nobody. Literally nobody. Their edge rushers are Arnold Ebiketie and Lorenzo Carter, and the other positions are pretty thin too. Best defensive player on the board seems like it's working out well for them, I feel.
Yeah, easily. And I think Dallas Turner is in a spot where the Falcons would be able to get him. And the value there, considering that while we love all of these offensive guys, not all of them are going to pan out. It's a very rare to think that every single one of them is offering the value that we think Dallas Turner might provide. He was a younger guy who's got the measurables off the charts. It seems like a no-brainer, especially considering that Atlanta has tried, you go back 10, 15 years, like Vic Beasley, all these guys off the edge.
They've replaced the
really
Jets as the team never having an edge rusher.
Do you want to hear the freaky thing?
What's that?
The freaky thing is now Falcons say we haven't had an edge rusher since it's also John Abraham. The Jets fans were saying that for 12 years about John Abraham. And now the Falcons are saying the same thing.
Maybe he leaves
about
like
the same guy.
He leaves a hex on these teams when
That's what I'm saying. How is it possible?
Yeah.
He's like the guy who doesn't teach the next generation how to do things, and somehow it's lasted for 15 years.
The
I would
curse
never
of
say that.
Abraham. They're number one far and away on the improvement index. Cousins.
Because of Cousins.
Yeah. It was 0. It's fair. Could have gone to either of
The
us.
best part is Greg pointing at the zeros. Like, like they're zeros.
The other time I said it, the first time, it was at 1.
Greg, the Panthers.
Oh, the Panthers. I feel like we haven't given a lot of Panthers love
Panthers
this offseason. I like what they've done. They've decided offensive line and Deontay Johnson, like that's the best way to help Bryce Young. I think it makes sense. They spent a lot of money for Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. It's not my money though, and they are definitely better. Yash Nijman from the Packers actually is a guy who I had in my top 100. I like a lot, and so that's all good. And then I look at the defense, and I think this was a pretty good defense. And I like Ejiro Evero. There's a reason why other teams wanted him. And I just think, man, a lot of talent's gone out the door. Frankie Louvu, Brian Burns, Dante Jackson, Gross Matos, who was a good player. And they've brought some in, like DJ Wanham and Josie Jewell, but not big-time players, Jordan Fuller. And they're asking a lot out of Ejiro Evero. Like, the focus has only been on the offense. And now they might not be good at anything, is my point.
Yeah, well, they lost key components on that side of the ball, and they're a team largely without an identity other than the fact that they've largely failed at quarterback and up front. And he was poorly protected, though, all year, and I can't think of a quarterback in the league that you don't want to get hit as many times as he was. I think Robert Hunt is a great signing. He was PFF's number 6 guard last year. He looked like it's a big loss for the Dolphins. You needed to go do that. I just think the number one thing is Dave Canales. 2 years in a row, he's revived a quarterback's career. This seems more challenging than even Geno or Baker Mayfield.
And you feel the panic around the team because the way the draft played out, and then Stroud instantly became the star. So they're like, holy God, what are we going to do? So let's redo the interior of the line. Let's remember, he's not a very tall quarterback, so it's very important to have some maulers up front that can really get things under control. Coming down, what was the old Tom Brady thing? Bring the pressure right at him, right in his face. Doesn't like it up the middle. So they're attacking that.
Who does?
They add a wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, Claybon, who is very talented. Certainly bumps back guys like Adam Thielen, which is necessary, into a different spot on the depth chart. So they're trying, and we'll see what else they can do here.
Yeah, as far as influence of the perception, C.J. Stroud benefited from a lot of that team that was there, right? At least Laramie Tunsil was brought to benefit another quarterback, right, when the Texans were making that original run. And so the Texans had this upheaval. D'Amico comes in, but C.J. Stroud was in a much better position. The team was in a much better position than the 2023 Carolina Panthers, where, Adam Thielen is your number 1. And you've got rookies and guys that didn't necessarily work out elsewhere. I think there's reason to be confident. But I'm also looking at Ejiro Evero and the defense, like Greg mentioned, where it seems, based on Jeremy Chin's falling off of the planet, that they have a stated belief, and this is the type of player, this is the system that we're going to operate in, and if you don't do that particular thing, then we don't want you to play on.
Right? Who are their edge rushers? And you've kind of brought in these maulers on the line, but they're like run first guys, and you don't really have a running back, by the way.
Hog mollies.
Save Bryce.
Claybon on the Saints.
The New Orleans
It
Saints.
should be fun.
Well, it's always fun, and I think every single year there's this like tisking of the Saints and saying that, well, we told you the cap is real. I don't think anybody, especially shout out to Kai Harley, is denying the existence of the salary cap. There are just different ways to manage the salary cap. And so the Saints do actually keep some veterans. DeMario Davis comes back. The Honey Badger comes back. They still have the talent. But last year was the best head coaching season in Dennis Allen's career. The absolute best.
Judged by wins and losses. Right?
By wins and losses.
Greg, can we just get one Dennis Allen compliment without the rejoinder?
That wasn't a compliment.
It was the best coaching job of his career.
It was not. It was just purely a statement of fact.
It's damning with faint praise intentionally.
Just let it be. Just let it sit a little bit.
Purely a statement of fact. Best season Dennis Allen has ever had as a head coach of the National Football League. What's the best reason to believe the Saints will finish even better in the division in 2024 than they did in 2023?
I can't, because I think last year they openly sort of said we are going to ride through this year identity free. I look at the Saints over the last couple of seasons. I'm like, I don't know how it is you want to exist in this world, or what life you're trying to live, and what you're trying to tell your fans. To me, it's like a roster kind of floating, and this what they've done so far this time around feels like more of the same to me.
What's a roster led by a defensive coach that wants his defense to be good, and it should be good. It was good last year. Can it be great? We'll see. Chase Young they bring in. We didn't talk about that on the show, where it's a lot of roster
He's
bonuses.
having surgery right now.
Right, if he can be active. So it was a fairly low risk because of the money, and a decent reward, I think, for him. But you hope he's well. Willie Gay was a nice signing. Like, their defense should be good. I just don't buy that they're suddenly conservative. They haven't done much this offseason, and I feel like more is coming. They need a second wide receiver. They certainly needed left tackle, despite having traded up for Trevor Penning a couple years ago. Marshawn Lattimore maybe will be part of trying to improve other spots on the roster. I don't know. I hope not, because he's one of the best players on the roster.
This is where I was supposed to speak.
You seem agitated.
We just wanted to give you a
No.
little
Saints
spot.
at times.
No, I always, in this
Yeah.
case, I was kind of sitting it out because I felt like the takes were strong about the Saints, and I don't have the same level of like heat around them. So he's going to
Well, it's like
keep passing the ball back and forth. Go ahead.
if you say it's the best coaching, you were doing that with a little tongue in cheek, because I'm giving the judges score. I'm giving them a lower score.
Well, I
I'm giving
mean,
them a low
just
score.
again, we've done quarterback wins. There are the group of people that believe that the quarterback gets to. I feel like if we were applying that to quarterbacks, then we should definitely apply it to coaches.
Well, they brought in
And that
Nathan.
was his best season.
Well, speaking of, hey, you mentioned it. You had to get Nathan Peterman in the building quickly.
Peterman.
Quarterback wins. I do like Clint Kubiak.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Methinks the Bucs are a tad high on their own supply. Remember that Jason Light, Connor Orr ambush at the Combine?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is also the same Jason Light who recently said that the Bucs free agency was one of the greatest free agency hauls ever. That was a direct quote, actually. And, that meant they re-signed Mike Evans, Levante David, got Baker under contract. And while I believe wholeheartedly that positive reinforcement of self is important, I am pounding that message home to my eldest son, Jack, right now, who's going through some struggles on the baseball diamond this spring. But perspective, context, also important. Not all back-to-back-to-back division winners are created equal. By the way, they've won 3 in a row now. And it's important to remember that Tampa Bay won these last 2 division titles despite a 500 record across those 2 years. 17 and 17. So the question becomes, what do the Bucs have to do to aspire to be more than just the champion of a bad division?
Get some more explosiveness on offense. Like, they are a great test of how much continuity matters. Bringing back all the guys you said, even bringing in Jordan Whitehead is continuity again. Like, bringing back a guy that was there when they didn't win the division, but they did win the Super Bowl 4 years ago. So it's been a nice run. His offensive line, he's done a good job. Jason Light, like, all their entire offensive line is day 1 or 2 picks by Jason Light. Like, he's a sneaky good drafter, but I feel like we need to get a few more of the difference makers on the defensive side. Trading away Carlton Davis and Todd Bowles' defense was really not holding their end of the bargain consistently last year.
I'm with you, Dan, in the sense that, like, I keep hearing the Bucs saying we're running it back. Like, you finish with the same record as Dennis Allen and the Saints, and you in a bad division, and you won a playoff game against a team that had fallen off a cliff.
Right.
But you're running back something that probably will give you again about 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, it's the questions are mainly about the offense. To me, I feel confident in Todd Bowles, and then that brings me back to Baker Mayfield. Like, I know it was a fantastic season, but am I going to see Baker Mayfield in this vision of the same way I see Kirk Cousins, in the same way I see Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts? I just don't know if Baker gets them over that line where you can have that continuity when it's Tom Brady, because you're going to have an opportunity. I don't know if the variance that Baker Mayfield provides is enough to get what's left of that team.
And it's another year where Baker Mayfield goes through a coordinator switch. I know he's happy with Liam Cohen. It's another one of these.
And if you're willing to go that high for Baker salary-wise, why not rework a couple more deals and make a real play for Kirk? and then you don't, and then he ends up in your own division, and he goes to the team that has the roster otherwise built to contend best in that division. Oofa. Timeout. Now, it's understandable that you might have just listened to those 3 minutes and said, tad critical there,
Yeah.
Daddy Rich. So I have a dissenting opinion. This dissenting opinion is actually the owner of West Bromwich Albion Football Club.
Wow.
And also a Bucks superfan, Shalin Patel. This is breaking news. This is world exclusive.
Hey there, heroes. Long-time listener, first-time agitator. I've been a lot more focused on football than football this offseason, but when I heard that the tugboat was trashing the Bucks offseason moves, I had to step in and defend my guys. The Bucks' main job this offseason was to retain or extend 4 All-Pro players, and those were Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield Jr., Levante David, and Tristan Wirfs, and they're well on track to doing that. And a big reason why is because Baker is who Baker is, and because he did the deal that he did. And so I think the Bucks have the right combination of players to feast on a weak division. And I'm glad that Dan's sleeping on the Bucks, and I'm glad lots of people are sleeping on the Bucks, because that seems to be when they do their best work. Going into the draft, they've got a couple holes, O-line, edge rush, and DBs. And, Jason Light's been good at getting O-linemen and DBs in the draft, and we'll have to figure out how to get the best edge rusher we can. But I think we still have the opportunity to beat up on a weak division. The Panthers are trash. The Saints are still figuring things out, and I don't think the Falcons got so much better with Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury to really scare us away from aiming for our 4th straight division crown. So, go Bucks and up the Albion.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Boing, boing.
That was a good comeback, because I think the Winfield thing, the way they handle that matters. And there would have been a fair excuse for the post Tom Brady Bucks just to disappear entirely. And Light has navigated. I mean, you keep the good players that you have, and you keep adding more. But it's like, there are worse fan experiences right now.
Jason Light's sneaky been there for a decade now. Like, good job by him navigating all these different errors, and he really is a good drafter. Like, he really does fill in at DB very well. They just need more players that are getting better. I feel like they have a lot of players like Godwin, like Evans, like Baker, frankly, who have, like, they're not going to get better. We know, like, they need to be that good just to get outscored in aggregate by like 20 points over the last 2 years. So it's like you need some younger players that are getting better.
And Rashad White stepped up, and
We're just still talking Bucks.
Yeah,
I like it.
Well,
We got a
good.
timeout.
That's what the timeout's for. And I think you keep the guys that are going to be in your Ring of Honor one day, right? And in terms of like Mike Evans, I feel could have gotten a better offer elsewhere. I think Baker Mayfield perhaps could have waited things out, saw where Kirk went and got some more money. But Jason Light, the folks in Tampa, convincing them to, I think they should be celebrated for that. I just don't see where the ceiling, like where's that surprise?
It's kind of all about continuity, because when I look at this depth chart, man, they do have, like, these guys have all played together for a while. They've not continuity in terms of the offensive coordinator. That's a little bit of a concern, because Liam Cohen is the one guy from the Sean McVay tree that really didn't get a bump. He got bumped off the Rams roster by Sean McVay.
Right.
That clear-headed, concise take is classic Shalin Patel. And
That's why he's running an actual sports team.
Rare that you
also,
hear a team owner call another team trash, but I like that.
You got to
It
love
is
that
a different
too.
sport.
I mean, and some of the press he's getting out there. Here's BBC. Shalin Patel, West Brom owner, aiming high, M dash, but with realism and patience. How about this from Express and Star? Shalin Patel is already giving West Brom fans something they have been craving. He was just on our show.
Arrow up.
That's our bud.
Craving's important, as I learned on Love Is Blind season 6.
Do you have a
little
money,
shout out. He has a
money
stake, it
stake in
seems.
this show?
No,
This
it's like-
is like the 14th time you brought this.
It was
show
like
up.
Crave. When you weren't here, Patrick and I actually did like 5 minutes on Love Is Blind season 6, and then I told Eric to take it out of the show.
Were
It's a
you
rare
there for
time.
this?
Yeah, but I mean, I watched like 2 episodes of season 1.
And then afterwards, I was like, you know what? Let's just take that out.
But
incredible.
maybe we could put it on the list if folks want to hear that 5 minutes.
I was going to say you could have done. It could have been a satellite pod, but isn't that already Mina's territory?
There you go. I
Put
mean, the
on-
season's long over.
NFL Plus, I think would love.
They'll
to have
take it.
Yeah.
Plus, we'll take a little Love Is Blind recap.
It is
I've
sport.
moved on to Blown Away and Top Chef.
I like that.
Glass blowing competition. Underrated. Blown away.
Thanks for the update.
All right, let's take a break, and we will finish out the NFC with the West.
All right, we're back. The show is continuing. Let's move to the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals with Gregg.
Wow, I love that you did the whole thing. The Arizona Cardinals.
All right.
They exist. Hey, Wuzumwal, we're talking about your team. For the first time, I feel like all offseason. They have been quiet. I'm a little surprised year 2 of this regime that they aren't stirring things up a little more. Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore out the door. They really don't have any wide receivers. You get rid of DJ Humphries at tackle. You get Jonah Williams. You have some rotational defensive linemen, but this is still a team, if you were just guessing who has like a top 5 pick next year, them and the Panthers still have the most to work out. They need a number 1 wide receiver. Right now it's Michael Wilson or Dortch. Like, they need a ton on the defensive line. I don't know if they're putting Kyler Murray in the best position to succeed right now. Like, there's not a lot of help on this roster right now.
That's my concern too. And they have been talked about, Monty Austin-Fort likes to compile draft picks, that's a target in the draft where someone could move up to get that QB4 or Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson is a good player. I thought he showed a lot of promise, but he seems like a good number 2. Greg Dortch is interesting too, and Zach Pascal's your other guy. I don't think you can afford to move out of that spot and pass up on like Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you've got to give Kyler Murray and the rest of this offense a chance.
And I feel like, considering what Kyler has been through, I have more confidence this season than I did a couple of other seasons ago in terms of Kyler coming back with an opportunity to be healthy coming into the year, and seeing these other quarterback situations and the way things have kind of been a success or a disaster. There hasn't been a lot of in-between. Kyler's probably that quarterback that's been the in-between, where we haven't gotten what we wanted, but there's still hope of some promise. I think we see that come to fruition.
I thought he fit well in this system.
Yeah, I think Michael Wilson is maybe not as solid as a 1 as you would like, but it's year 2, there is cause to be positive about it.
It's good from a Cardinals fan perspective that you can just kind of get things back. You got the boat out of the dock now. The repairs are done, and maybe we could go out on the high seas and do some things, because you had all the drama around Kyler with the contract. Then he blows his knee out. Then you're waiting for him to return. Now we can go into a new season with a fresh start. There's so much work to do on the roster, obviously, and you lose Hollywood Brown, DJ Humphries. There's work to be done, Greg, but at least you have Kyler starting fresh and healthy, and let's see once and for all if he is that dude.
I'm confident in him. I thought he fit well in that system. I thought they coached really well on both sides of the ball. Like, Gannon was cooking up pretty creative game plans without a lot of talent, but that lack of talent is still there. So they really need to start hitting. Like Justin Jones, they gave $20 million guaranteed. That was their big move on defense, a guy that the Bears, weren't exactly in love with.
The Rams, the Aaron Donald-less Rams with Patrick Claybon.
And we've talked about the Philadelphia Eagles having to deal with a first ballot Hall of Famer not being on the team, still playing very well. Aaron Donald was still playing exceedingly good football, and he was getting the lion's share of attention, as he always would. But the contributions from Kobe Turner last year, maybe because of what Will Anderson did, kind of got slept on overall on his same team. Puka kind of stealing his shine a little bit. They've done so well in the draft, and Sean McVay hasn't actually gone to the combine since 2020. And I'm wondering, are the Rams proving that does anybody need to go to the combine? The way that Les is cranking out these very, very good players later on in the draft, I'm excited to see what they do this year. That's my only question. Do coaches need to go to the combine?
I think it's funny because Sean McVay, from a cynical angle, you'd say, oh, he wants to work less. I don't think that at all. But it's like the first kind of coach to totally ghost the combine. Like he doesn't want to do anything in the preseason. These are two building blocks of the NFL offseason into regular action, and he just dismisses them both. And last year was one of the best coaching jobs in the NFL, I thought.
Well, he's not picking the players, certainly not on defense. I do worry a little bit that they're rolling back this idea of like Now it's Chris Shula as the defensive coordinator. It's like, we're just trying to be average on defense, and we're going to invest $66 million guaranteed at guard in Jonah Jackson and Kevin Dotson, which they're going to be fun. It's like it's a creative way that they've attacked this offseason. I like Cam Curl. They brought back Darius Williams, but also Kelly Witherspoon is a free. Just like no Aaron Donald, and you're going cheap a little bit on defense, and it's a new defensive coordinator. Like, Raheem did a nice job coaching this defense up, and counting on that again might be, expecting too much.
I liked the way JB Long put it on the show on Monday that you lose Donald and it's massive and it's incalculable, and we're going to see how they move on. But he was there as a transition with your boy Kobe Turner, Greggy, and that defense getting its sea legs in real time and ending up almost getting to the divisional playoffs.
Byron Young too. I still think there was a world where they win the Super Bowl last year. Maybe it was like 1 in 20.
I think I
think there was a world.
Yeah, JB was kind of hitting at that. If they can get by that first game, it's kind of a wide open. You never know. And so I get why the way they're playing this offseason, and they're looking to kind of build in this like Mach 2, or is it Mach 3 now of Sean McVay's tenure there. Keep the quarterback upright, and the sky's the limit, I think, on offense.
They remind me a little bit of the Colts back in the day. Now, the Colts had a couple like Hall of Famers or near Hall of Famers on defense, but it was just like invest in offense every year, try to be a top 3 offense every year, hope the defense is good enough, and we'll win 10 games at worst with our offense.
The Seattle Seahawks. I got this one. So I feel like for years now, the Seahawks have been parked in a cul-de-sac neighborhood. That's fine. It's nice. The houses are not luxurious, but they're comfortable. The people, the people maintain their yards, and the neighbors get along. And it's a nice place to trick or treat, but also not the place you go if you're hoping to get full candy bars. If you know what I'm saying. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like as Brandon
get those
Flowers,
little
the mini ones. No, I'm talking about the full bars, the ones
Sure.
Connor Orr gives out.
Right.
You got to go to a different neighborhood. I imagine that's where they want to be eventually. Okay. And I think this is a pretty decent roster with, good players on defense. They have talent on offense, a replacement level quarterback, but not a bad player, not a major issue.
He's trying to be a jerk.
And that kind of set up with good coaching, and we'll see how Mike McDonald is a recipe for 9 or 10 wins, maybe a one-off road trip in the playoffs. But is there something more to aspire to? Does this team have the ambition to try to move out of that neighborhood? As Brandon Flowers of the Killers once said, there's nothing wrong with working class. But what if there's more out there? The American dream, as it were.
I love change, and like the Seahawks started to feel a little stale to me under Pete Carroll. As much as I like Pete Carroll, I think Mike McDonald.
I think that's part of the setup. Like Carroll moving on is because I think they get that right.
Byron, your all-time Hall of Fame type coach is an indication they want to change neighborhoods.
I think Mike McDonald is going to be a huge story next year. There's something about his vibe. Just watching a couple of his press conferences, like I think the Seahawks needed this, and I'm not down on Geno Smith or anything, but I thought that the Sam Howell trade was intriguing because this, to me, is a starter in development who, if things get a little shaky at quarterback, Sam Howell is much more spicy to me than Drew Lock as a number 2 who can come in and at times look really good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Howell takes risks. He holds on to the ball way too long, but he can go out there and get buckets. There was a time last year where he was leading the NFL in passing. I don't think it's enough to dethrone Geno. But what it does is it gives you value at the backup position where all these backups are playing. And, we see a team's actual commitment and how they feel about their starter, perhaps considering where the backup is and how good he is, where they're not necessarily concerned about the starter's psyche or whatever. We know nothing's going to ruin Geno like that. He's been through everything. But, talent-wise, on defense, I think there's some room to improve. On offense, running the ball, just got to keep people healthy. But I think they can get there. I think they're on the precipice. It's just hard, especially in this division.
Their biggest move was just bringing Lenny Williams back, and then
they had to
re-signing Noah Fant. So they haven't gone outside that much. They have new linebackers, Tyrell Dodson, Jerome Baker. I thought were smart. 11 core guys have left the team.
Final timeout. I really wasn't trying to be a jerk about Geno. I'm just. Where does he fit with the Dalton line?
He's definitely above it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's replacement.
Based on
He's not miles
last
above
year's
it.
play also, or just the year that
Absolutely.
everyone remembers?
I think he played really well down the stretch last year. And if you look at kind of the pop the hood numbers, even the PFF grades and stuff, the 2 years were very similar. I think he's been a little streaky within those years, but they didn't block well for him. He threw well down the field all season. He's not a perfect quarterback, but I think he was safely above that. To me, he was in that like 10 to 12 range both years.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I thought when we were in London, we watched him make just watching him together at the same time. Like Geno can whip the ball downfield, and I honestly think he is higher than the Dalton line. Mike McDonald did not come out screaming and shouting about he's definitely their starter.
But their actions,
to
Patrick's point, kind of showed like, they brought in a backup who has a similar skill set in some ways other than the running to Geno.
And a backup that can then learn from Geno. I think like for every 20 seconds we spend talking about Sam Darnold, then that should mean at least 20 minutes of Geno discussion.
Well,
That's
see,
the thing, like there's no
Darnold to me is closer
that's
to.
a touchy because
but by
somebody
the way, like-
said something critical
by
about
the way,
Geno
I do
Smith
think we
in the
spend
Greg
about-
Claybon hive.
Well, we do
of
spend
same
about
thoughts.
20 minutes talking about Geno Smith on every preview show.
We've given
So-
plenty of Geno Smith conversation on this
I think
show.
Darnold though would be closer to a replacement level.
Yeah.
Based on his contract. Like I guess that's what I think. We're at a different.
We don't
point
know
of
about Darnold, but yeah, right now he needs to prove that he can even be that.
or Baker even.
we don't know about Darnold, but a few years ago we were absolutely certain about Geno, right?
He's fine. Yeah, I gotta get. You know what? I gotta get Nick Shook in here. Shook's got him 18, and I think that is a nice spot.
2 years, last 2 years combined, charted passing. This is from Football Insights on throws 15 yards downfield. Geno Smith, the number one most accurate quarterback in the league. I think when he's got his issues, he'll hold the ball sometimes. He's almost too aggressive, but when he sets up to throw, the ball goes where he wants it to go about as well as any quarterback in the league, which is a great starting point.
I think like maybe Dan, where you're coming from, because it's kind of how I feel. It's just like, okay, cool. So Geno Smith's your quarterback. Let's see how that.
Right. Don't get it twisted. I just said they live in a nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. He's part of that.
It was a replacement level. Like even if 18 is replacement level, then like we should be in like.
I mean, to talk as
Well, you
Geno
want
Smith
a
would be.
top 5, top 10 quarterback.
I mean, you guys are saying like the fact that I could even bring up that Geno is someone that could be replaced and they can get better at the position is
No,
like
they
an
were-
absurd thought. I'm sorry, like I fundamentally disagree with that.
They certainly I think thought about it, but I think if he's in a situation with everything great around him, like he's gonna put up numbers like Jared Goff or better. I think last year he played well. He played well down the stretch. Probably saved his job.
He's not bad. Listen. Agree to disagree. I agree. I agree to disagree, and I respect your opinions.
So you're saying you disagree. So
I disagree, but I respect the hell out of you.
so it was a shot at Geno. Like,
A shot at Geno in that I don't see him as highly as you doesn't mean it's a shot. It's just I don't see him at the same level. That's all.
Yeah.
Time in. Close it out, Mark, with the Niners.
They have been my pet team for years. They have.
True.
I mean, I think they came in. There was reporting that their number one priority. They lose Eric Armstead and Chase Young. That they wanted to make sure that they kept that defensive line humming. And Leonard Floyd, nice pickup. They trade from Lee Collins. I trust that this will just work out for the Niners on some level. I see two mysteries that kind of linger. Number one, like, does Brandon Ayuk get moved before the draft? They were linked to
Hanging around out there.
right.
That
The Jaguars were linked as a team interested. The Steelers, maybe not, but he's in the last year of his contract, so you're already paying one of your other wideouts a ton of money, and it's like I don't like seeing that offense lose even one of those pieces because they're so overwhelming. I think the second thing for me, and I just get this feeling about the Niners, and maybe it's just like I don't know. I feel like psychologically, or in terms of like a spiritual like feeling inside the building, like how many more breaking points can the Kyle Shanahan experience take? Because it's like every season has been so heartbreaking. It kind of reminds me of like the Saints team that had 3 terrible playoff losses 3 years in a row, and they've really never been the same. I mean, it's just like you get so close, and it's like, is there a point where we just don't assume they win 14, 15 games?
I think it's a great question from like a human standpoint because these losses aren't just any losses. I mean, you look at the Super Bowl defeats, the title game defeat, like these are kind of feeling like the world is. They're winning in overtime of the Super Bowl a couple months ago, and they can't get over the hump. And at one point, does that like psychologically just damage you?
Offensively, they will return all of their starters, and they're to my mind, the best offense in the NFL.
Yeah.
They could try to improve their offensive line and do some things. I don't think they'll trade Ayuk, although supposedly they were open to it. I think if Jacksonville was going to give up that number 17 overall pick, they would have done it. And if I was Jacksonville, I would do that.
Yeah, he's going to be because the offense has proliferated literally across the entire NFL. And you have Brandon Ayuk, who's learned it from the person who we associate this offense with, and has gone through all those trials and tribulations. It would be a mistake to move him. But to Marc's point, like physically, I think we saw the accumulation of all those extra football games on the Kansas City Chiefs, and the 49ers played literally the same number of games, but it didn't turn out in the way that they wanted at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But over and over again, to deal with that, you're eventually going to get an extra season's worth of football in playing all of these games, and they're such a physical team. I think it does add up. Not to discount them, but like over and over again at some point.
And this is the first year, Marc, about the questions about the defense are fair now after the way they struggled down the stretch, and they've lost players, and it's going to be
They added a lot.
challenge.
Gross Matos, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, Jordan Elliott, kind of under the radar. A lot of rotational guys on their defense.
New defensive coordinator.
There.
Oh.
Yeah.
We go out with a dart as we must. We just went around the NFC. We went around the AFC a day earlier. So now you have all 32 team cover. We were thinking there was a few years back where we missed a team, we skipped a team. I never, ever agree or hardly ever agree when we're getting criticism on social media or whatever, like, oh, you hate my team. They always hate this team. But when you get your team skipped in this exercise, we will take the L. But I think we're covered.
But especially if you're waiting, like you're the fourth division.
Oh, I
and
can't
so
even
you've
imagine.
waited through. It's not 48 minutes. It's 2,048 minutes, and then like your team doesn't get mentioned. It's like big slap.
I think
in the
that's
face.
only once, and we started doing these around the AFC NFCs pretty early on in the run of this show. I would guess we've been doing it for like 11
say our batting
years.
average is pretty good?
Yeah, I'm just saying we only missed one team out of 32.
We're hitting like 800.
Yeah.
We're
Get
hitting
off our
like
ass.
990.
It's probably not
990 up in here.
I like to say,
Plug in.
if you forgot about a team, I mean, probably not that big of a deal.
I mean, I think it might have been the Bills also, but this was during like the forget a
I would
Bills
say
era.
probably
I love-
warranted then.
But
I
we
love
na- we
forgetting about the
naturally.
team that you forgot about.
I mean, you're kind of doubling down here, guys.
I
I
think it was
guarantee
like
next episode we probably spent like 20 minutes talking about the bill. We make it up to people when we do.
Sure.
It might have been the EJ Manuel Tyrod
Yeah.
era Bills. I
Scrap
believe
that
it was a
whole era.
while. It was a while ago.
Eric,
Second EJ Manuel reference this week, by the way.
Eric, now it's time to put down the gun. And I think sometimes another risk that we take, and I just did get a report that Andrew's doing great, and he's going to be released.
It's good to hear.
Later today. Have we created a monster now? Will he be able to step out of the studio and realize that time in his life is over, and he needs to become a civilian again?
I think it's a fair question. I would say that if memory serves, and I'm thinking of like, Erica and others, that every producer that's had like the taser weapon has gone absolutely nuts with it. I think it's a powerful it's a powerful feeling.
You have to have a structure in place for once he gets home.
A code.
Yes.
And you not necessarily that Eric needs leadership, but he said he is an order follower, and so he needs that structure in place to work not just at home. Like we got word from Kensington Palace yesterday that Kate is working at home. Right.
Work from home.
We can
Classic scenario.
that report.
We all
Relatable
understand
sitch.
that.
Yeah.
And so I just want Eric to be able to dart from home safely. and
Wow. Yeah.
I appreciate it, guys.
Let's go out with Alex Badura's song, simply titled Patrick Claybon. We'll be back next week. Now, Greggy, you are taking a much-deserved vacation next week.
I am. Yeah.
So enjoy that.
As well. My in-laws and
Where
my
you going?
parents meeting up for the first time since our wedding 17 years ago.
Spicy.
Where?
It's undisclosed location.
Oh,
No, Hawaii.
nice. So, and then I'll be taking off the next week, going to the same island.
Wow,
Collection of
look at
islands.
us.
Oh, nice.
So, we'll see you Tuesday.
Patrick
Till then, heed the call.
You are the man. Momentum. What a guy. What a stud.